You are reading this because I need that someone knows. Not to help me, that phase has already passed. I only need that someone knows what happens when you call back, what really happens. Not what you imagine that will happen, a prank, a wrong number, an annoying telemarketing center. What in fact happens when you return the call to something that should not have called you in the first place. I took time to decide to tell this, not because I am ashamed, not because I think that people will not believe. At this point, honestly, I do not care anymore if they believe. I decided to tell because I realized that staying quiet does not change anything. This does not go away for lack of attention. I already tried. So here it is. My name is Daniel, 24 years at the time. 1-bedroom apartment, 4th floor, building without elevator, on a street that was neither busy nor deserted. The type of street that has no personality at all, that you do not remember after you pass through it. I lived alone. I worked from home. I spent most of the days inside those 4 walls, in the same cycle, in the same sequence of hours, with the same window of light crossing the same part of the floor throughout the day. I knew that apartment in the way that you only know a place when you spend too much time in it. Not only the layout, not only where the things are, but the rhythms, the way that the refrigerator hums before making that louder noise, the step on the upper floor that creaked always between 6 and 6:30 in the afternoon, depending on the day of the week, the wind that entered through the crack of the bathroom window when the temperature dropped at night, making a thin sound, almost musical, that took weeks for me to stop being bothered by it. I knew each sound, each variation, each specific silence of each part of the day. It was because of that when something new arrived, I noticed before understanding what I was noticing. The number called for the first time on a Tuesday, end of afternoon, sun still entering through the living room window, the type of hour in which the day has not ended, but you are already mentally preparing for the night. 2 rings, stopped. I looked at the screen, number that I did not recognize, area code that I did not know to identify from which city or state it was. I ignored. I continued what I was doing. On Thursday, again, same number, 3 rings this time, stopped before I reached to reason if I should answer. On Saturday, 2 times, one at 10 o'clock in the morning when I was still drinking coffee, another at 11:40 at night when I was already in bed with the cell phone in hand. 11:40 at night. That time already should have told me something. But what bothered me, what kept bothering me during the following days in a way that I could not name right, was not the time. It was the consistency, the exact quantity of rings, 2, 3, 2, varying in a way that seemed methodical, as if something was monitoring how long I took to pick the cell phone and adjusting the number of rings accordingly. I searched the number. No result anywhere. 3 reverse search sites. 0. It was as if that number existed exclusively in my missed calls and in no other place in the world. I should have stopped there. I did not stop. Wednesday night, 11 o'clock. I was at the table trying to finish a work that I was not managing to finish, with the head already tired and the attention fragmented, when the cell phone lit up. Same number. I answered before thinking, an automatic movement. The hand went to the cell phone and accepted the call before any conscious part of me had made the decision. On the other side, silence. But not the silence of a call that dropped, not the silence of someone who dialed wrong and stayed without knowing what to say. It was a silence with a different quality, with density, with the specific sensation of a space occupied by something that is not making noise because it chose not to. "Hello?" I said. Nothing. I waited. 10 seconds, maybe 15. Is there someone there? And it was in this moment that the silence changed. No sound appeared. It did not become louder. It only transformed. It deepened in a way that is not physical, that has no how to describe using words that make sense, but that I will try anyway. It was as if the space on the other side of the call had become bigger suddenly, as if I had started to hear inside some very large place, and something inside that large place had noticed that I was listening and had stopped moving. I hung up. I stayed still with the cell phone in hand for a time that I did not know to measure. The apartment was quiet, the refrigerator humming, the wind through the bathroom crack, everything normal. I went to sleep telling myself that it was spam, that it was automatic, that it was some stupid telemarketing system that called and disconnected, that it was nothing. At 3:17 in the morning, I opened my eyes. No noise, no alarm, no stimulus that I could identify. I just woke up, suddenly, completely awake, with the type of clarity that you normally do not have in the middle of the night, and with a physical, immediate certainty that arrived before any rational thought. I was not alone in the apartment. It was not fear exactly. It was recognition. Like when you enter a dark room and before turning on the light, your body already knows that there is someone there. Not because you heard, not because you saw, just because something animal in you feels the difference between an empty space and an occupied space. I stayed lying down without moving, listening. The refrigerator, the wind, the step above not because it was dawn. And then, from the living room, came the sound. They were not steps. It was not a knock. It was not something falling. It was not any sound that I could categorize easily and discard. It was the minimal, specific sound of a weight redistributing, of someone who had been still for a long time, standing or sitting, and who needed to change slightly position. The type of movement that any person makes dozens of times per day without noticing, and that you only notice when you are listening to a silence that should be complete. I stopped breathing. I did not move for a time that until today I cannot estimate. It could have been 3 minutes. It could have been 15. Time does a strange thing when you are lying in the dark with the heart beating slow and heavy and the certainty growing that there is something on the other side of your door that should not be there. When I finally got up, it was slow. I took the cell phone from the bedside table, turned on the flashlight, went to the bedroom door, opened. The living room was empty. I passed the flashlight through each corner, behind the sofa, behind the curtain, nothing. But the chair of my table was turned toward the window. I need to explain this right, because I know it seems small. A chair turned. Who cares about a chair? I care because I have a habit that I carry since I do not know when of pushing the chair back under the table every time I get up. It is automatic. It is the type of thing that you do without thinking, like closing the bathroom door even when you are alone at home. I never, at any moment since I moved to that apartment, went to sleep without having pushed the chair under the table. The chair was turned toward the window, slightly inclined to the left, as if whoever was sitting on it had the face turned to a specific point of the street down there, and not to the center of the window, not to the horizon, but to a point, specific, deliberate. I went to the window and looked to the street. Empty. Dawn of residential block. One yellow post lit. Parked cars. Sidewalk wet from drizzle. No person, no animal, no movement. I stayed looking for a time without knowing what I was looking for. I returned to bed. I did not sleep anymore that night. I stayed lying facing the ceiling until the sun started to lighten the window, and only then I closed the eyes for some hours. In the 3 following days, no call, no message, complete silence. Every night before sleeping, I pushed the chair back under the table. In the morning, it was in place. I started to breathe again. I started to convince myself that I had exaggerated, that the tiredness had distorted things, that I myself had turned the chair at some moment without noticing. I did this for 3 days. I built a reasonable explanation and stayed inside it. On the 4th day, the message arrived. From the same number. 5 words, without punctuation, without uppercase, as if it had been typed by someone who had no hurry at all. You were not alone. I read 3 times. 4. The stomach turned in a slow and definitive way, like when you realize that you made a mistake that there is no way to undo. I answered. I asked who it was. I asked what it meant. I asked how that person knew what had happened that night, since I had not told to anyone. No response. The message showed as delivered. Nobody answered. I called the number. This time, it did not ring any time. It went directly to a tone that I had never heard before and that I do not remember having heard since. It was not busy signal. It was not operator message of non-existent number. It was a grave, continuous tone, absolutely constant, without any variation, that continued until I hung up. As if the other side of the line was not unavailable, as if it was waiting, as if that tone was the sound version of something that is standing still and looking at you. I reported the number to the operator. They said that they would verify. They never gave me any return. It was after this that things changed in a way that there is no more path back to rational explanation, and I stopped trying to find one. The chair moved again, every night. I pushed. I photographed the position before sleeping. I woke up. I went to the living room, turned to the window, always at the same angle, always with the same slight inclination to the left, with a precision that does not make any sense if it is accident or my habit that I do not remember. Precision is not the correct word. It was exact repetition, like a mark being left in the same place every night so I do not forget. I started to wake up at 3:17 every dawn, not at 3-something, not around 3, at 3:17. I opened the eyes and my cell phone marked 3:17 every time, for weeks in sequence, without alarm, without noise, without reason that I could identify. I just woke up and it was 3:17, and the apartment was in that specific silence that I had started to recognize. The silence that had texture, that had weight, that seemed different from the normal silence of dawn. And the sounds changed. The apartment still had the same noises as always, but there was something new, low, diffuse, difficult to locate because it seemed to come from no specific place and from every place at the same time. Similar to breathing, but with a rhythm slightly wrong, too slow, too regular, like something that learned the pattern of a breathing but was not born breathing. Every time that I held my own breathing to listen better, the sound stopped, and it restarted when I returned to breathe. I took some days to notice this pattern. When I noticed, I stayed awake an entire night testing. I held the breathing, sound stopped. I returned to breathe, sound returned. I held again, sound stopped again. I did not sleep anymore that night. Not because of fear, well, because of fear too, but mainly because that meant one thing that I did not want that it meant, that whatever was making that sound was paying attention to me. It was reacting to me. It was not a recording. It was not a passive noise. It was not the building or the pipes or my imagination. It was something that knew that I was there and was monitoring me. In the 3rd week, in the middle of the afternoon of a Wednesday, with sun entering through the entire living room, I was in the kitchen making coffee. I heard the chair move. I turned. The chair was in the process of turning. It had not finished turning. It was turning, slowly, clockwise, on its own axis, without anyone on it, without any wind, without any vibration that I could feel on the floor, turning with the precision of a controlled movement, like when someone sits carefully and the chair adjusts the weight gradually. It stopped, in the same place as always, same inclination, same angle. I stayed still at the entrance of the kitchen. I did not scream, I did not run, I did nothing. I think that my brain simply did not have protocol to process what the eyes had seen with daylight at 2 in the afternoon, sober and rested. The chair did not move any more, but the space around it seemed different. It seemed occupied. I took the keys, went down the 4 flights of stairs, and went to walk on the street for 1 hour. When I returned, the chair was turned to the window. I had not slept. I had not distracted myself. I had left the apartment with the chair in the position that it stopped after turning. It had continued to move after I left. I told Lucas some weeks later, an old friend, someone who knew me well enough to not discard what I was saying immediately. I showed the photos of the chair. I showed the message. I tried to describe the sound, the dawns, what I had seen with my own eyes in the middle of the afternoon. He stayed quiet for more time than I expected. Then he took his own cell phone and showed me, without saying anything. The same number, 3 missed calls. The most recent was from 2 days before. I almost called back last week, he said. I went to the call history. I already had the number selected. I was about to press call. What stopped you? He took time to answer. I do not know. A sensation, as if something in me knew that it was wrong before I understood why. He made a pause. What was that you activated, Daniel? I did not answer, not because I did not want, because I genuinely do not know. Until today, I do not know what it is, from where it comes, what it wants, if it even wants something in the sense that we understand wanting. I only know that calling back was like answering something that was making a question, and that my answer was an authorization that I did not know that I was giving. Lucas did not call back. With Lucas, nothing happened. I think about this frequently. This was 2 years and 4 months ago. 8 months after everything started, I tried to move. It was not a rational decision. I knew at some level that probably it would not help, but I did anyway because I needed to try. I signed contract in an apartment in another neighborhood. I rented a truck. I spent a week packing the things in boxes, disassembling furniture, preparing myself. On the night before the move, I woke up at 3:17. The living room was dark. I got up, went there. The chair was not turned to the window. It was in the center of the living room, away from the table, in the middle of the empty space, turned completely to my bedroom door. I stayed still at the door looking at it, and I had the certainty, not as thought, but as something physical, like pressure in the chest, that moving apartment would not solve anything, that it was not the place, that what entered when I called back was not trapped to the walls of any room. It was attached to me. It would go with me to any place that I went. It would install itself in any chair that existed in the next apartment. It would wake up exactly at 3:17, regardless of which window I was next to. I did not move. I undid the boxes over the following weeks. I returned the truck. I called the new apartment and lost the deposit. I stayed, not because I wanted, because I understood that there was nowhere to go. The chair still moves, with less frequency than before. Sometimes a week passes without happening, but when it happens, it is always exactly equal. Same angle, same inclination, like a signature. I still wake up at 3:17 sometimes per week. I learn to simply stay lying and wait to pass. Stay quiet, breathe slowly, not listen for the sound that responds when I breathe. Sometimes I manage to sleep again, sometimes not. And I learned not to look to the bathroom mirror when I wake up at dawn. This is not superstition. There is a specific reason. 4 months ago, I woke up at 3:17, needed to go to the bathroom, entered without turning on the light because I had gotten used to not turning on. I felt the wall, found the switch, turned on. For a fraction of a second, less than a second, maybe half a second, maybe less, my reflection did not follow me immediately. I moved. The reflection stayed still for that minimal instant. And in that instant, before the reflection adjusted and returned to imitate me, I saw the position in which it was. Shoulders slightly forward, head inclined to the right, eyes that were looking in the wrong direction, not at me, but at a point slightly to the left of my face, like someone looks when is looking at something that is right behind you. It lasted less than a second. The reflection corrected itself. It started to imitate me perfectly, as reflections do. But that half second was enough for me to understand that what was using my image in the mirror had taken an instant to notice that I had moved. I did not collapse. I did not scream. I just looked at myself in the mirror for a long time, looking at a reflection that now was perfectly synchronized with me, and I thought, for how long this has been happening, and I simply had not caught the right moment. 3 weeks ago, I received a message. Same number. I learned. I did not answer. I did not call. I blocked the number for the 12th time. I had stopped counting, but I tried again anyway. 10 minutes later, I received a message from a different number. Blocking does not solve. I know. I learned together. What I activated when I called back that night has no name that I know. I do not know if it is an entity. I do not know if it is a process. I do not know if it is something that has intention or something that simply works according to rules that I do not understand. I know that the phone was only the door. I know that what entered through the door does not need it anymore. I know that it learns, that it observes, that it tests limits in a methodical way, like someone mapping a territory. The calls were to know if I was there. Answering was to confirm. Calling back was to say, "You can enter." And I said, without knowing, but I said.
If a number you do not recognize rings 2 or 3 times and hangs up, do nothing. Do not search, do not save, do not block nor ignore with ceremony. Just let. Let the number go away as if it had never arrived. Do not lend any attention to it, because some things call only to feel if there is someone on the other side. If you answer, they know that you exist. If you call back, you are not only confirming that you exist, you are saying where you live. I live here still, in the same apartment, on the same 4th floor, with the same chair that moves and the same time in which I wake up and the same mirror that sometimes takes an instant to return me. Today, early, before writing this, I drank coffee looking through the kitchen window. On the other side of the street, an apartment with the window open. Someone sitting near the window with the cell phone in hand, too far for me to see the face. I stayed looking for a moment. The person lifted the cell phone. It seemed to be photographing something. It seemed to be photographing my window. It can be coincidence. It can be many things. But while you read this now, is your cell phone quiet? Are you sure that you did not miss any call today? Go there to check, and if there is an unknown number in the missed calls that called and hung up before you answered, please do not call back, because next time it can be you writing this.